Hey everybody, it's Mr. Nordhausen coming to you live from the home studio. We're going to take a break from solo literature and get into, well, what makes up a lot of the solos, at least from a drumming perspective, and that would be rudiments. And I'm repping my new favorite shirt that I recently got for my birthday, which talks about all rudiments mattering. And in fact, since I recently turned 40, it's got the 40th rudiment on the back, which is the triple Rhythmic which we're going to get to. So anyway, the rudiments here, boy, they're just... They're the building blocks, if you will, of what we do on drumming. You would be hard-pressed, if not impossible, to find a solo that is not built upon the rudiment structures laid in here by the Percussive Art Society here. These are the international drum rudiments, and as mentioned, there are 40 of them with that triple Rhythmic there. So let's get into it, right? So the first category over here, well, let me say this actually. Out of all 40 rudiments, they're broken down into 4 categories. We have roll rudiments, we have diddle rudiments, we have flam rudiments, and we have drag rudiments. I'm going to do 4 separate videos, and in each video I'll tackle one of the 4 segments. So let's begin with the roll rudiments. In order to do a roll of any type, you need to be able to get a proper bounce stroke. Now, there's a bounce stroke where you get 2 hits, and then there's a multiple bounce stroke where you allow the rebounds to happen multiple times and you get 4, 5, 6 hits, however many it might be. So you got a true bounce stroke, 2 hits, and then you got the multiple bounce stroke, 4, 5, 6, however many you might get. So you need to first learn that skill. And therefore, grip is incredibly important. Using a matched grip, your thumb needs to be flat on the stick, your fingers need to be wrapped around for stability and control, and your index finger, your pointer finger, needs to be directly across from your thumb because this is going to be your fulcrum, your pivot point, like a seesaw or a teeter-totter. And you're going to need to use a nice single wrist stroke, but allow the back end of the stick to come out of your hand, and have the fingers bring it back. And it's like casting a line and fishing, if you will, or if you've ever used a whip or something like that. That's the motion that you want to be getting. Then you simply control how many bounces you get by stopping your hand from moving. If you stop your hand from moving, if you lock those into place, then the back end of the mallet of the stick here can't go anywhere either. And if the back end can't go anywhere, well, neither can the front. So that's how you control that. So I recommend, if you're a beginning percussionist, working on getting a multiple bounce stroke. And then, over time, seeing if you can control that rebound with your hand, like I talked about, to make it only do the 2 hits. And please note, I'm not going wrist-wrist. It's 1 wrist motion that produces 2 hits. Okay? Alright? So please don't go right, left. We're not doing double wrist strokes here. Alright, now looking at the rudiments here themselves, the first 3 are actually single strokes, meaning you're not going to bounce. You're not going to do any of the things we just talked about. This is literally just hand-to-hand single strokes. The single stroke roll is playing hand-to-hand, right then left, and right then left, and you could start slow, make it go as fast as you can go where it's still even. We don't want, uneven, and then bringing it back out again. So here would be an example of a single stroke roll. So at no point in time was I actually doing any bounce strokes. It was all just hand to hand. The single stroke 4 is literally what it says it is. 4 single strokes. Right, left, or left, right. So again, you can do that slow, fast, slow. And then you could also do that on the left hand. Single stroke 7, well, it's sort of like 2 single stroke 4s put together. Before you tell me my math is bad, that's because each one of these only has the single lonesome tap at the end. So whereas the single stroke 4 is kind of a group of 3 and then the ending hit, this is a group of 6 and then the ending hit. So the single stroke 7, again, you can do right hand lead or you can do left hand lead. So or again, you can do left hand lead. So those are our single strokes. Now, 4 through 15 here on the page are dealing with actual bounce strokes. So number 4 is that multiple bounce stroke. Okay. Number 5 is the triple stroke roll, where you're controlling the bounce stroke to be 3 hits. So it's not the multiple bounce stroke that gets 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. It's not a true double bounce stroke of 2 hits. It's 3. Okay, so you're getting a triple stroke there. Then the double stroke open roll. That's literally just getting that nice double bounce. Okay, various speeds, but a double stroke roll the whole way. Now, number 7 through 15 deal with numerical stroke rolls. 5 stroke roll, 6, the 7 stroke roll, 9 stroke roll, 10, 11, 13, 15, and 17. Easiest, and in my opinion, the best way to learn these is mathematically speaking, as well as through counts. So, for example, the 5-stroke roll is literally called the 5-stroke roll because the drumsticks will hit the drum head 5 times. Now, it's not going to hit it 5 times by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to hit it 5 times by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 right hands, 2 left hands, and a single right hand. Buzz, buzz, tap, or more appropriately, bounce, bounce, tap. Okay? So a right bounce, a left bounce, and a right tap. Or vice versa, left bounce, left tap. So that's the 5-stroke roll. And then the 6 is the same thing. The drumsticks are going to hit the drum 6 times. Now, you can't actually go bounce, bounce, bounce. Yes, that would be 6 times, but there's no real ending. So, like the 5-stroke, it's going to have 2 bounces. Bounce, bounce. That'll give you 4 single hits, right? Okay, great. So if I need to get to 6, well, I still need 2 more strokes onto the drum head here. So you're going to put 2 taps, and you see that here. We have a single tap, then we have the 2 bounce strokes, and then another single tap. So that's why it's the 6. The 7-stroke roll, you're going to do 3 bounce strokes, which would equal 6 hits, and then you'll put your single tap on to make it 7. 2, 4, 6, 7. The 9, you're going to do 4 bounces. 2, 4, 6, 8, then your tap. 9. The 10, oh, even number like the 6. You're going to play it like the 9 with 4 bounces, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then you're going to do 2 taps, 9, 10. Because you can't just do 5 bounces and not have an ending. The 11-stroke roll, you're going to do your 4 bounces that you did for the 9 and the 10, but you're going to add another bounce. So that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? 5 bounce strokes, and then a tap to be the 11th. The 13-stroke roll, you're going to add yet another bounce. So you're going to do 6 bounces and a tap. The 15, you're going to do 7 bounces and a tap. And then the 17-stroke roll, you're going to do 8 bounces and a tap. So hopefully that makes sense to you mathematically. Now, there's some other cool things that you can do. Number one, I think it's helpful to learn all of these by their rhythmic counts. For example, a 5-stroke roll should be counted 1 E and. So 1 E and, 2 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, bounce, bounce, tap, bounce, bounce, tap. The 6-stroke roll can be played multiple ways, but in this instance, it's 1 E and with 1 being a tap, E and being bounces, being a tap. So tap, bounce, bounce, tap, tap, bounce, bounce, tap, tap, bounce, bounce. You could also start on the bounces and go bounce, bounce, tap, tap, bounce, bounce, tap, tap. Same difference. The 7-stroke roll, 3 bounces and a tap. So 1 E and bounce, 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 tap. 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and The 9-stroke roll, 1 E and 2. Bounce, 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 tap. And the 10-stroke roll is 1 E and 2 E. The 11 is also 1 E and 2 E. But 2 is a bounce stroke for the 11-stroke roll, and 2 is a single stroke for the 10. Okay? 13-stroke roll, 1 E and 2 E and. The 15-stroke roll, 1 E and 2 E and And the 17-stroke roll, 1 E and 2 E and 3. All right? Here's some other things you can sort of take note of. The 9-stroke roll is really 2 5-stroke rolls, and mathematically that makes sense. Get rid of your tap for a second, right? And you've got 2 bounces for the 5, you've got 4 bounces for the 9. Well, 4 is twice that of 2, so a 9-stroke roll is merely 2 5s put together, but with 1 tap, of course. 2 9s put together is the 17-stroke roll, because the 9 is 4 bounces and the 17 is 8 bounces. And then there's all sorts of mathematical things that work out that way. But I highly recommend understanding both the math and the rhythmic counting for all of these rolls. When you understand that, rolls will not be a problem whatsoever. So here we go, let's play through these. Let's start with the 5-stroke roll. Like we talked about, bounce, bounce, tap. I'm going to start one on my right hand, then I'm going to start one on my left hand. The 6-stroke roll, again, 2 bounces and 2 taps. That equals 6 total hits. I'll play it as written first, which is starting with a tap, then bounce, then bounce, then tap, and then it'll loop over and over again on the same hand. So it'll be like this. Now you can also, as I mentioned earlier, play it on the bounces first. So bounce, bounce, tap, tap. the 7-stroke roll. As written here, it's in its 16th note subdivision, so 1E and is going to be my tap, so it's going to keep kicking me back onto the same hand. So bounce, 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 tap, and then right back into that again. However, the 7-stroke roll can also be played in a more condensed rhythmic fashion where it's triplet 1 or triplet 2 or triplet whatever you want to put at the end of that. It's still 3 bounces and a tap, but it's condensed to be in a triplet form. It's technically 1/16 note shorter in duration, but it's the same number of strokes. Hope that makes sense. That would be played as so. I'll do left-handed. I'll go triplet 1. You could hear triplet 1, jakakakong, right? Okay, the 9-stroke roll, as we talked about, that's 1E and a 2. So I'm going to start on my right, end on my right, then I'm going to start on my left and end on my left. 1E and a 2. Bounce, 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 tap. The 10-stroke roll, same number of bounces as the 9, but I'm going to do 2 taps. So 1E and a 2E, 1E and a 2E. Okay, like this. The 11-stroke roll, the same length, the same duration as the 10, but instead of doing 2 taps, it's only 1 tap because the second to last stroke is now going to be a bounce. So it's still 1E and a 2E, but 2 is a bounce stroke now. Okay, the 13-stroke roll. We've got the quarter note to start it off with, just like the 9, so 1E and then we have like a 5. Basically the 13-stroke roll is a 9 and a 5 put together. 1E and a 2E and. I'm going to start on the right, end on the right, then kick it over on the left. Okay, so here we go, 1E and a 2E and. Okay, the 15-stroke roll is 1E and a. I've got my quarter note, right? And then it's like a 7. So the 15 is a 9 and a 7 put together. 1E and a, there's the 9 part. And then 2E and a, there's the 7. So 1E and a, 2E and a. Is my tap, my single stroke. And since I'm starting on the right and doing that tap on the left, since it's an upstroke and then I'm going to kick right back to my right hand again. So this is another one of those rolls that will not alternate. I can either start on my right or I can start on my left. but I'm not going to start on my right and then go to my left and then go to my right and then go to, this is not an alternating roll. So here we go, the 15, 1E and a 2E and a. And then the 17th stroke roll. It's a half note, so it's 2 quarter notes put together, like 2 9-stroke rolls. 1E and a 2E and a 3. I'm going to start on my right, end on my right, which means I can start then the next one on my left, so this will alternate. 1E and a 2E and a 3. That's how this one goes. Okay, so there you have it. There are all of the roll rudiments, whether they be of the single variety or the multiple bounce stroke variety, the triple stroke, or your standard, traditional, if you will, bounce strokes, double bounce strokes here. And I hope you've understood mathematically what I was talking about with these rolls, and also relationship-wise of how they link in together because of their mathematical component. And I also hope you understood the counting aspect of that, and that's honestly the best part about it. The mathematical approach is great for understanding, but the counting understanding is great for performance. I would say it's necessary for performance. So please work hard to understand those concepts and enjoy the roll rudiments. If you'd like to learn and practice your diddle rudiments, flam rudiments, or drag rudiments, you can check out my other videos on those as well. Have a great day. See you soon.